The man who can be alone without misery is the man who holds the key to freedom. For what is solitude, if not the training ground of the self? And what is dependence, if not the enemy of peace? Many men fear being single. They see it as a void, to be filled, a failure to overcome. But the Stoic does not see time alone as punishment. It is preparation. For in solitude, a man meets himself honestly. He sharpens his mind, strengthens his will, and becomes whole without needing another to complete him. Time alone does not weaken a man. It refines him. The longer he walks this path with intention, the more he becomes clear, calm, and unshakable. He does not chase companionship for comfort. He attracts connection through presence and principle. Let me share with you 5 Stoic truths that emerge the longer a man remains single with purpose, not out of bitterness, but out of growth. A man who spends time in solitude begins to see his emotions for what they truly are, passing clouds, not permanent truths. When he is alone, he has no one to project his feelings onto, no distractions to cover discomfort, and no external force to blame for his internal unrest. In that silence, he faces himself. This is where emotional mastery begins. He starts to observe his reactions, his anger, his fear, his longing, not with judgment but with clarity. And with repeated observation comes control. A Stoic man does not suppress his emotions, but he does not serve them either. Instead, he trains himself to respond rather than react. He feels the pull of desire, the sting of rejection, the ache of loneliness, but he does not allow these emotions to dictate his choices. He becomes grounded, steady in the storm of life. This kind of composure is not born in the chaos of constant relationships. It is forged in the quiet discipline of self-awareness. As time passes, he becomes less needy for external reassurance. He does not rely on a partner to stabilize his mood or validate his worth. He carries his peace with him. This doesn't make him cold. It makes him free. And from that freedom comes strength. Emotional independence is the foundation of resilience. It allows him to enter future relationships not as a fragile seeker of comfort, but as a calm presence who brings value without demand. The longer a man is single with purpose, the more emotionally intelligent he becomes. Not because he is disconnected, but because he has done the work of knowing himself. When the storm comes, he does not panic, he stands still. That stillness is not emptiness, it is mastery. And mastery is what sets him apart. When a man spends extended time single with intention, he is given a rare opportunity to build a life that is anchored in purpose, not distraction. Without the constant pull of romantic drama or emotional dependency, he is free to invest fully in the things that truly matter: his growth, his craft, his health, and his character. This is where the Stoic path begins to take root, in the discipline of directing energy toward creation rather than consumption. Instead of spending hours deciphering mixed signals or recovering from emotional turbulence, he wakes early to train his body, expand his mind, and push forward in his mission. His solitude becomes sacred time where he is not diluted by compromise, but sharpened by focus. He does not waste energy chasing temporary pleasure. He plants it in long-term goals, in habits that compound, in visions that demand sacrifice, and in this space, he finds peace not in comfort, but in progress. The longer he remains single and committed to this path, the more his identity forms around strength and self-direction. He is no longer defined by who he dates or what validation he receives. He becomes defined by what he builds. His mind is calm because it is used with purpose. His body is strong because it is disciplined. His days are not filled with noise, but with deliberate action. This kind of man does not need distraction to feel alive. He has tasted the clarity that comes from living for something greater than momentary pleasure. And because of that, he becomes magnetic, not from effort but from alignment. Purpose is attractive, direction is rare, and the man who has both will never chase what cannot walk beside him with equal intention. When a man remains single for a significant period and does so, With awareness, not bitterness, something profound begins to shift within him. He stops settling. Early in life, many men fall into relationships driven by fear. The fear of being alone, the fear of missing out, or the fear of not being chosen. But as the Stoic learns to stand alone, those fears lose their grip. He no longer sees solitude as a weakness but as a strength, and when fear dissolves, clarity rises. This clarity changes how he sees others. He no longer entertains chaos for the sake of companionship. He does not tolerate emotional volatility just to avoid loneliness. He begins to notice the cost of being with someone who disrupts his peace. And because he knows now how to cultivate peace on his own, he becomes unwilling to trade it for shallow connection or temporary comfort. His standards are not inflated, they are refined. They are based on what aligns with his values, not his wounds. Each day he spends walking his own path. He becomes more attuned to what strengthens him and what weakens him. He does not seek perfection in a partner, but he does require alignment. If someone brings confusion, neediness, or drama, he does not try to fix or save them. He simply steps aside. For he has learned that it is better to walk alone in clarity than to walk with someone who clouds his vision. This man's solitude is not accidental. It is chosen, and that choice is not made in reaction, but in strength. The longer he walks this path, the more he learns that what he allows into his life must meet the standard of the life he is building. Anything less is not a risk worth taking. A man who has spent significant time single and intentional eventually understands that he does not need another person to complete him. He becomes whole, not through another, but through self-mastery. This wholeness is not rooted in arrogance, but in deep self-awareness. He has spent enough time with himself to know his strengths and his flaws. He does not seek someone to fix him, save him, or fill a void. The void has already been addressed, not by distraction, but by doing the inner work. This man has faced the silence most people run from. He has lived through evenings without validation and mornings without a partner's reassurance, and he has come out stronger for it. He is not half of anything. He is a full, centered individual. His happiness is not held hostage by someone else's presence, and his self-worth is not determined by romantic attention. In this, he gains something rare: independence without isolation. Because he is whole, he seeks a relationship not out of need but out of desire for meaningful companionship. He is no longer drawn to emotional highs and lows. He is drawn to peace, to alignment, to someone who enhances his life, not someone who defines it. His expectations shift, not in bitterness, but in clarity. He does not rush, he does not chase, and he certainly does not beg. He simply waits until someone shows up who adds to the life he has already built. This kind of man is rare because he has learned to stand firmly on his own. And when he finally invites someone in, it is not to carry him, it is to walk beside him. That is the mark of a man who is truly whole. That is the power that comes from embracing solitude and transforming it into strength. As a man spends more time single and devoted to growth, he begins to see love through a clearer lens. What once may have looked like connection now appears as emotional craving. He learns to separate desire from compatibility. In this time alone, he is no longer driven by the need to be chosen. He is driven by the need to choose wisely. This shift in perspective changes everything. He no longer confuses chemistry with harmony. Just because someone excites him doesn't mean they are good for him. He becomes more discerning, not cynical. Time has taught him that many relationships are born out of escape, not alignment. He has watched others fall in love with potential, with illusion, with the idea of someone rather than who they truly are. And he chooses not to live that way. He waits not because he's afraid, but because he values his peace more than momentary pleasure. The longer he remains single, the more he understands that true connection is not about possession or constant contact. It is about shared values, mutual respect, and emotional stability. He is no longer impressed by charm alone. He looks for depth, for someone who has also done the inner work, for someone who can sit in silence without fear, who can hold space without trying to control it. This kind of man no longer clings to people out of loneliness. He does not pursue out of insecurity. He chooses with wisdom. And when he finally gives his time and attention to someone, it is not scattered. It is sacred. He understands now that love is not something to stumble into blindly. It is something to enter with both eyes open, rooted in truth and free from the desperation that once clouded his judgment.